What's up, everybody? It's Tanika Sheree here, and I am back with 4 identity lies that the culture wants you to believe. So we all know we are in this world, but we are not of this world. Yes, yes. As kingdom citizens, our home is in heaven. However, we are here on earth. Yes, here we are on earth. However, the Lord wants us to live, one, peaceably amongst those who may not be believers and those who actually are. And also not to fall victim to the devices of the actual place we are staying in as aliens right now. So I've identified 4 different, I see the pun. So I've seen that there are at least, there's plenty more. But I wanted to point out the 4 identity lies that the culture in the world that we live in has been telling us, because the problem is that we really are struggling with truly understanding who we are and what our identity is. So, lie number 1, you are a god. Lowercase g, uppercase G, however you want to see it. It is a lie. It is a lie from the pit of hell, and it is circulating something serious. And it's because there are several verses that have been taken outside of context. And if you actually delve a little bit deeper and start to understand the theology or understand the context, then it's clear to see that the word of God is not telling us that we are gods. People also like to distort the idea, not even the idea, the fact that we're made in the image of God, and they just like that closeness of teetering. Are we a God? We're in the image of God, so are we a God? And unfortunately, it's causing a lot of people to become misguided. So I just wanted to clarify, we are not gods. I think I've said this in another video, but I need to point it out again. We're not gods. The mere fact that we're actually created goes to show how we are not gods. The hugest, I should say, I mean, there are a quadrillion, jabillion, infinity, jillions of different reasons on how we are not God or like God. But one of the main distinctions is that we are created beings. And one thing that separates us from God is that God was never created. He just always existed. I got Bible for you. Psalms 93:2. It says, "Your throne was established long ago. You are from all eternity." God was always here. I remember being a kid. I was about 6 years old, and I asked my mom, who created God? Because my mother would always say, we were created by God. And I was like, well, who created God? And she was like, no one. And I just couldn't understand that. And then when I became an adult, I asked God the question, it's just so odd, that you just weren't, you don't have parents, you were just kind of always here. I'm just trying to wrap my brain around that. And the Lord answered me very clearly. He said, that's what makes me God. And I was like, oh. And I had to humble myself while simultaneously, my knowing of that was and that's what makes you God. God is God because he always existed. No one created him. No one is superior than him. He is the most high. We are not that. The second lie that culture tells us about our identity is that our identity is in our relationships. Not true. This is not true. Because the moment you put your identity in being a wife, the moment you put your identity in being a mother, the moment you put your identity in these things, when those seasons end, then you feel as though your identity has. You've seen a mother who becomes really depressed once her kids go off to college and doesn't need her anymore. Or you see a husband who loses his wife, and then it's all he knew was she and him, and he didn't have anything outside of the marriage. It's deteriorating once you put your identity solely in these things. You get lost. It gets lost. The original order of relationship was God to man, and then sin distorted all of that. So now we have all of these soft idols. And what I mean by that is that we don't think of them as idols. We're just like, oh, well, I'm a mother. What do you want me to neglect my kids? What do you want me not to be a good mother? You know, I'm a wife. What do you want me to not be a good wife? And it's not that. It's that when you put all of your identity in that, you put every single thing in that, then when your kids go off to college, it's like, you're like, what is my purpose? What do I do? What do I do now? What am I living for? You know, and you can seep into a depression, or, you know, you've made that your God. So when your God has moved on, you're like, what? Wait, what now? Now what? You know what I'm saying? And the Lord gives us different purposes. Okay. Your purpose might be to be a mother. Your purpose might be to be a wife, but putting your identity in it completely, as in, this is who I am, not even teeters, because if you're saying that this is who I am, you're making that your idol, you're making that your God. So the moment that your God, lowercase g, either moves on or fails you or dies, you don't have any self-worth. And that's super crucial to understand, that your identity is not in these things. Your purpose can be in those things, and God uses you for that, but he's still at the center of it. That's the difference. You know, when the Lord makes me a mother, I have to keep him at the center of that. He's going to show me how to be a good mother. When he makes me a wife, he's going to show me how to be a good wife to my husband. He's going to show me how to do all of these things with him at the center. Meaning he's grooming me and teaching me, and I'm getting from his spirit how it is that I am to raise my kids, to be a good wife and partner to my husband. And so that is part of my purpose. And in that, there's a bunch of different things that the Lord is teaching me: selflessness, you know, just growing me in a bunch of different areas that I will apply to that. However, I understand that my identity is not in those things. It does not make me. My value is not in being a mother. My value is not in being a wife. Of course, I have Bible. Galatians 1:10. For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. This is Paul speaking to the church of Galatia. And basically, this applies today. You know, this is literally what it is. If I'm out here just trying to please you, I have already made you my God. I've already made you my idol. And God comes second. And God has to be first. He has to be. It is part of what he requires to be deemed as a true child of his and a true follower of him. You have to put him first. But when you put your children first, you put your marriage first, you put your servitude as a daughter first, or you put your auntie-hood first, or you put I'm saying all these feminine ways because I'm thinking of myself. However, when you put all of these things first, you're actually putting God second, and God cannot be second if he is running your entire life. If he is in complete control, he cannot be number two. And that goes to show you that you are making these other roles, if you will, your idol, as opposed to allowing him to be first and showing you how to be purposed in these roles. It's a huge distinction. I know a lot of people may be like, I don't really get it, but it's a huge distinction, because I'm not making these roles my everything. I'm allowing the Lord to show me how to let him work through me in these roles. And then when these seasons pass, you know, if they pass, I should say, but when these seasons pass, or if they pass, then I'm not completely devastated, because I'm moving on to the next purpose that the Lord has for me, because my whole entire being is not tied up in that. I hope that that was a better explanation and it made a little bit more sense. Okay. Lie number 3 about our identity that the culture is telling us. It tells us that our identity is in our sexual orientation or our sexual preference. This is probably one of the biggest lies. And I would kind of put this in tandem with your race as well. Okay. No, I can't help the fact that I'm brown. I simply can't. I can't help the fact that I'm black. But if I put my everything in this, I'm pointing to my hand, it's a problem. I cannot put everything in that. I can celebrate it. I can be grateful that the Lord made me a black woman. But I cannot put my identity, my entire identity in my skin. I simply can't. There are too many faulty things that come with that could destroy me as an entire person. I cannot put my value in that. And then the first thing I said, my sexual orientation. This is such a slick lie that the enemy has taught the people them that their orientation, their sexual orientation is where they need to put their identity. And it's such a slick lie because it's like when people reject the sin, it's like, oh, so you don't accept me for who I am. And then they subscribe to rejection, and then they subscribe to all these other things that are just false narratives. You know, people who reject the sin become bigots. People who reject the sin become hateful. And it's like, no, listen, that ain't got nothing to do with you as a person and me actually valuing you and loving you as an actual person. But when you attach your identity to who you're attracted to or sleeping with, and I'm only having a smile on my face because it's like, if you listen to the absurdity of it, and I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to be hateful, I'm not trying to be nasty, but if you listen, let's deduce it down to the bare bones. If you put your identity in who you sleep with, like what? Like that's such a minuscule value. When we're talking about identity, we're talking about your value. We're talking about, you know, how you see yourself. And when you put yourself just in that, you know, and this isn't a diss to the LGBTQ community in any way, shape, or form, but it's just a wake-up call to be like, it's such a trick because now you have so many people that are depressed when, I don't know, say a transgender woman who was once a man has these interesting feelings that they can't remedy or wants to go back to being a man because they've done all of this to become a woman, and now they're just stuck in terms of their identity. They have depression, there's suicidal issues, there's all of these other things that come along with it. And it's like, I just hate that for people. Like, I hate to see that. I think the statistics were showing when it came to transgender that a huge, I want to say over 50% of a lot of trans people want to go back to their original gender. And they become so depressed because of all of the stuff that they've done to achieve this transgender that they've been trying to accomplish. And so there's such a high level of depression to that. You know, people who, you know, may fancy a woman, and it might be just a perversion or a distortion of how they view a woman or how they view an attraction because of something that may have happened to them or some sort of door that was open to them. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, this is who I am. But then 1 second they might see a guy that they're attracted to, or they're confused by these feelings that they feel that are actually natural. It's like you're putting your identity in this. And then all of a sudden, the second that fails you, it's like, wait, what? It's so slick. Like, it really is a clever method to keep people in bondage and to keep people divided. You know, a lot of these things can become confusing, and I'm super empathetic to that, especially in a world that is condoning a bunch of everything. So it's like a free-for-all. Whatever you feel, just do it. So I am empathetic to those who are really struggling and they're really trying to understand their body and their body's reactions to certain things, or even just feeling that they were born a certain way. And that might very well be the case, you know, because generational curses are real. We can delve into that another day. Your identity in your feelings is going to set you up because at some point in time, it will fail you. It will fail you. And that, I think, is the biggest point that I'm just trying to get across in the most sensitive, loving way that I possibly can. I'm not telling you that your feelings aren't real. I'm not telling you that your feelings aren't strong and a struggle. I'm not saying any of that at all. What I am saying is God created you for a specific reason, and it is so much bigger than just who you're attracted to. I have Bible because I always have Bible because Bible is important. Having support is important. It's Psalms 139, 13 through 16. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. The eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. So why did I pick that verse? Why am I choosing Psalms 139, 13 through 16? Because what I want to point out is that I believe this is David speaking here, but he's speaking to the Lord and he's explaining to him like, I am made by you. You created me and you knew every single thing that you purposed for me to do. And you knew every single way in which you created me for. I have to put all of my inhibitions aside and my feelings aside and my thoughts aside, because I respect that you are God. And I have to, in respecting that you are God, respect what you require from me and what you are calling me to do, what you have actually purposed me for. You know, understanding that you created me and you created my identity, and I can only find that in you. I can only put that in you. Okay? So I chose this verse because it just goes to show that God knew every single detail of us. You know, the way that God formed us, it was very intentional. It was very purposeful. And we're created for so much more than just whom we are attracted to. To submit to the lie that my identity is in my sexual orientation is a setup. It is a setup because God has purposed you for far greater than who you are attracted to, who you're born attracted to, who you find attractive, who you want to sleep with, who you want to spend your life with. And that goes on both sides. And again, it kind of ties into the relationship aspect of it, but it's bigger than that because the enemy has literally created this lie and this narrative that your identity, they say it in everything. Like, who do you identify as? It's like, what? What are you talking about? Tanika, that's who I identify as. I'm not out here saying I identify as a heterosexual. I identify as a person that sleeps with men. Well, I'm abstaining, so I'm not sleeping with men right now. But I identify with a person that is attracted to men, you know, and I'm making a lot of it on myself because I want you to see that that identity is so limited. You are far greater than that. You're so much bigger than that, yo. It's like you are so much bigger than your sexual orientation, and the enemy is tricking people into believing that this is it. That's their identity right here. Just stay right here. Just stay right there. Anything else, it's a problem. So I really wanted to get that out there. I'm sure people hate me. I'm sure I've offended some folks, and that was never my intention. I really say this in love. And not only do I say it in love, I'm backing it with the word of God. And this is what the Lord is saying. You are so beautiful and bigger than just whom you're attracted to. That just cannot be the limit to your identity. It is a lie. The fourth identity lie that the culture / Satan wants you to believe is that your identity is in your success. Okay, this one right here wears me out the most. It wears me out the most. Part of why, if I'm going to be transparent with you, is because I've fallen victim to it. Okay, so that is very real. Okay, I have fallen victim to measurable successes, measurable earthly successes, if you will. And it sucks when you are recovering from the failure. Okay, what I mean by this is when you're like, oh, when I make $1 million, I'll be deemed successful, and my identity will be I'll be a millionaire. I mean, will that be your identity? Like, is that what we're hanging our hats on? When I get this third business, then I'll feel more stable, and that's what I'm putting my identity on. Now, this one's kind of easy to see when I've explained it the other way that I've explained, like motherhood and wifehood and all of that. But think about that. When your business fails, if your business fails, I'll say that. I'm not trying to speak anything over anybody about anything. But if your business fails, who then are you? Are you a failed business person? Like, is that your identity now? And if so, what does that do to your value? What does that do to your esteem? What does that do to you? Like, what happens? You lose all your millions. You put it in bad investing. What does that do then? Okay. You say one wrong thing and all your Instagram followers stop following you. What happens then? I won't even say one wrong thing. You say one thing that all your Instagram followers hate and they stop following you. Then what? Identity is so much deeper. Again, another tool. All of these are tools of the enemy. And we could clearly see how clever he is, right? But all of these are such strategic tools of the enemy to completely second guess your identity. Okay, hold on, because I got a Bible. So here's the thing. I have Matthew 6:33, which is another favorite revisit of mine. And it says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things will be added unto you. And when you look at it that way, if you're seeking the kingdom first as your success, then it's like, okay, I'm not putting my success on some sort of earthly value something. I'm not putting my success on other people's opinions. I'm not putting my success on other people's feelings. We just talked about feelings earlier, because guess what? Those people's feelings, they may change. More than likely, 99.9% of the chance they will change. And I'm putting my stock in that. When they do change, it's like, oh my gosh, no. Like, it's a setup, y'all. It's a real setup. When you put things, your value in these things, your identity in these things, and you make these things identify you. Oh, when I become a doctor, oh my gosh, like, no. It's going to be dope when you become a doctor, but it is not the end all be all. It is not the everything. It is not the final say. And when you do that, you also create this insatiable chase within inside of you. It can be whether it is coveting or whether it's just ingratitude. You're just not grateful because you got to go to the next level. You got to do the next thing. You have to keep pushing. You have to. And there's nothing wrong with being tenacious. I would just strongly suggest that you talk to the Lord about that type of tenacity. Hey, Lord, is this what you are calling for me to do? Not just chasing. Because one, you'll burn yourself out. But two, it's never going to be enough because it's such a fleeting identity. It's here and then it's gone. We all have to work, okay? And I'm not saying do not be ambitious. What I am saying is that ambition, one, needs to be checked with God. Everything needs to be run by the Father, period. But two, it's also a heart posture. Hey, am I being ambitious to show off to people? Am I being ambitious so that I could always have stacks on stacks on stacks? Am I being ambitious because there's something deeply rooted in me and I didn't have, and I was in a bunch of lack as a kid, so now I just have to have a bunch of everything that to fill that void that can never be filled because it's a spiritual situation. You have to check what that means and what that is, okay? And the easiest way to do it, obviously, is to bring it to God, and he'll tell you, like, oh, no, you could be ambitious in that. Oh, because it's advancing my kingdom. Oh, no. You can't. You shouldn't. You should probably fall back on that because that's a you thing. Again, I don't know if you guys have noticed. I haven't made the big reveal yet. I kind of did in one of them, but I don't know if you've noticed, but everything always circles back around to God. And that is what our identity needs to be put in. Because when we're putting it in all of these other things, those things collapse. God does not collapse. He always is. He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and forevermore. He always is. Nothing changes. He is and will always be. and he is the Most High, and that's who you put your identity in. Okay, well, Tanika, that sounds good. What does that look like? What does that mean? It means that you literally submit to him. You say, okay, Lord, you running the thing, okay? You created this earth. You created me. So I have to give you reverence. How do you want me to live my life? And then he's got a thing called a Bible that he says, all right, child of mine, go on and study the word that I have given you, and that is how I want you to live your life. And so people might seem like, oh, okay, that was so like elementary. You like took us all the way to the end to just say, put our identity in God. Yeah, I did. Because when you put your identity in God, that doesn't get shaken. Now the Lord will test your faith. The Lord will test you as a person. The Lord will grow you as a person. The Lord will help you bear spiritual fruit. The Lord will create in you a clean heart, and he will upgrade you if you will, but he'll never fail you. That's who you want to put your stock in, because that's the thing / person. I don't want to call you a thing, Lord, but that is the person that doesn't change. That is the person that will consistently love you. That is the person that will consistently hold you down. That is the person that will consistently have your back. Bigger than all of those things, that is the person that knows everything and knows how he formed you for his purpose. That is the person that is not only omniscient, but omnipresent. Can you be everywhere at once? That is the person that knows the blueprint, because he created the blueprint, which in turn he fearfully made you and your blueprint. That is who you put your identity in. You say, hey, my identity is in the Lord. It's in Christ. That's who I put my identity in. Now, what do I do? Okay, the Lord tells me that I need to do these things. This is how I need to follow him. This is how I need to honor him. This is how I need to please him. Because it doesn't change. The problem with the culture, the problem with the world is it's too trendy. It changes. The not problem with the Lord is that it's a standard. It never changes. And that's what you want to put your identity in, because that's what your identity originally was created in. Sin distorted it, jacked it on up. And then here we are trying to please ourselves and all of these other carnal things. But we have to get back to putting God in his rightful position, and then us in our position, and remembering that this is what it was always supposed to be. And so when I put my identity in this standard that is rock solid, that's a cornerstone, that's not changing, that's not moving, then I'm good. Then that changes the game. I have another verse for you. Colossians 1:16. And it reads, for in him, who is him? Him is Jesus Christ. Things were created, all things. What things? Some things? No. What things? Those things? What things? Partial things? No. All things were created. Things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him. That's who you put your identity in, because that's who knows what's best for you. That's who created you. Our value system is in God. Why? Because the Lord tells us how much he loves us. He loves us beyond measure. All right, so in this video, we review 4 lies that the culture wants us to believe. Number 1 being, you are a God. You are not a God, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, your identity is in your relationships. They ain't it either. Number 3, your identity is in your sexual orientation or race. I gave that example as well. Okay, they ain't it either. And number 4, your identity is in your success. All right, guys, I hope that you got something from this. I hope this was helpful. I hope this encouraged you and edified you in some way, shape, or form. And if so, please feel free to like, subscribe, and share. Please leave a comment below on what part you felt was your most enlightening area that you weren't necessarily aware of being lied to. And I will see you next time. Peace! I'm changing